Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's season premiere of season 6 of The Walking Dead. Wow, that was a great, intense episode. Oh my goodness. We start off, and you can hear Rick's voice before we see any pictures, and he is talking to the group of members of Alexandria. And he is explaining to them that this is something that needs to happen. We need to kill them before they kill us. And all you hear is this like horde of zombies and walkers just making all this noise. And you're just like, what is going on? What have we landed in the middle of? And we see that there is sort of like a foundation that has been dug out, and all these walkers have been trapped in there, and which is one of the reasons why there are not that many attacks on Alexandria, that the members of that community don't really see or come face to face with too many walkers, because the sounds of all of these walkers have lured many other walkers to that location, and it's only a matter of time before they're able to break out of there in a horde of people and or a horde of walkers and attack the home of everybody there at Alexandria. And when Rick and Morgan stumble upon this, they immediately put a plan in action. And this episode was so intense. I mean, oh my goodness. Now, we get these flashbacks and they're in black and white. And so everything, obviously, in real time is happening in color. And we get the sense that what I mean to say is we pick up pretty much right where we left off with Rick shooting uh, what's his name again? The husband of Julie, and obviously he's the one who had attacked Deanna's husband and like slit his throat, and then they ultimately ended up killing him. And so we sort of pick up right where we left off there, and we get us like the sense of how the community has sort of put themselves back together after such a horrific event. And as we see in the flashbacks and at the very top of the episode, we see that it's not just Rick and his group that are trying to come up with this plan to get this horde of zombies out of there and direct them away from where they're located. It's all of them. So something must have happened to have gotten them all together on the same page. And we slowly start to see that happening as the episode plays out. Now, Carter becomes a very integral part of this episode, and he is clearly not long for this world because, he is a member of Alexandria. We never saw him in last season, but apparently he's like this huge character in this episode, and he is very opposed to Rick's plan. He doesn't trust him, and he even at one point tries to gather the former members of Alexandria together to take out Rick. And it's pretty funny because Gene overhears it, and of course, Gene being so clumsy, he drops a can of jars or something, and this guy Carter is almost about to kill him because he overhears this plan to try to take out Rick, and he obviously knows that he's going to tell Rick, and he points his gun at him, and Rick, Morgan, and Daryl come walking in, and it was a pretty intense scene. But of course, Rick lets him go, and we see what ultimately happens to him at the end of the episode. And I love that scene when Morgan and Rick are sitting on the porch, and he says, the person that I know you to be is the one who let him go. And Rick says, yeah, there was really no point in killing him because he is never going to learn, and he's just going to get himself killed, which is obviously an interesting flashback because in present time, he's basically getting his face chomped off by a walker. It was pretty funny. So we did get to touch base with pretty much every member of the team that we're also familiar with, except for Michonne. Hello. Like, how come I didn't get to see a Rick and Michonne flashback? We only really got to see them together in present day, and we only really saw her in the house when Rick was talking to Morgan, and she was just eavesdropping on the conversation. But we didn't really get a scene with Michonne and Rick in any of the flashbacks, which kind of disappointed me. But we did get to check in with Rosita and Tara, and Tara obviously is alive and well. And I thought it was really sad when she mentions Noah's name, and obviously she's been in a coma, so she doesn't realize that Noah was dead at this point. So, she finds out the truth, and she's obviously devastated. But yeah, we got to check in with her. We got to check in with Abraham and Sasha is still sort of on the mend, and her and Abraham are in this car trying to lure all these zombies down this road, along with Daryl, who's on his motorcycle. I mean, it's a pretty genius plan, and they're just trying to keep all the noise in one area so that they just follow the cars on this way and don't let anything distract this. So it was pretty intense as the whole episode was going on, and I thought, what a way to start off this new season, because you have this sense of, oh well, they're in this town that they've been in for so long. They don't really understand the real threat of what these walkers are like. And there's a moment in the episode when a few walkers, breach into where they're trying to build this new wall, and the members are just kind of like all frantic, and Rick is trying to say, no, kill them, you guys have to learn. But of course Morgan steps in, and then they all step in to try to help, because they're useless. They really are just useless. And Rick has this look on his face like, Morgan, why did you step in? And he's like, you said you don't want any more surprises. And it's pretty much like, yeah, if you had just left it up to these guys, you guys would all be toast because they just can't defend themselves. They're not trained. They just don't know enough in the survival of how to live in this zombie apocalypse, which is pretty pathetic considering it's been going on for quite some time now. Deanna is still leaving Rick to be in charge. She's obviously a little worse for wear. She, her husband was just murdered, and now, she's having to deal with the aftermath of all of that. Yeah, it was a pretty solid episode. I actually really enjoyed it. Not like I wasn't going to enjoy it, but I thought there was a lot of intense moments. I like that we got to see sort of where everybody is. And this episode was called um the what was it called again? Like basically it was almost like Rick and Morgan's reintroduction to one another, because they've met each other in the very first episode, but it's almost like they're meeting each other for the first time again, because they're both two completely different people. And there's a scene where Rick is watching Morgan play with this, not play with, but do this training with the stick, which we've already seen him wield quite successfully in last season. And Rick says, "How did you learn that?" And he said, like, somebody taught me. And it's sort of like, did somebody teach this to you when I first met you before or after I met you? And it's sort of, again, obviously it was along the way, because just like Rick has changed along the way, Morgan has changed along the way, where it's almost like they've flipped identities, where Morgan at the beginning didn't trust Rick and didn't know who he was and was very skeptical, and now Rick is on the reverse side of that. And I like the scene when they're sitting on the porch and Rick says, okay, yeah, you can come stay with us. Like, there's no need for this anymore. Like, I trust you. I know who you are. It's sort of like, I just needed to really know if I could trust you again, kind of thing. And I did like the scene when Rick was talking to Daryl, and he basically said, we don't need to go out and get any more people and bring them back into Alexandria, because like what we have here is fine. And I like that Daryl says, in order for us to survive, we do need more people here, because we can't just do it on our own. And he says that is how we're going to survive, is by bringing more people in. So it'll be very interesting to see who they actually bring in, because as we all know, the wolves are not far. And we already know what they're capable of doing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens once the gang comes across that group of people. Now, at the very end of the episode now, everything is looking like it's going according to plan. Yes, they lost Carter. He got chomped on, but c'est la vie. And I did like that scene too, where Glenn went to the store to try to kill all those walkers, and then they had to shoot it out. And we've got a couple new members in the crew, and I don't remember everybody's names, but it'll be interesting to see how they come into play in this season. But I did like that scene when Glenn was taking charge there, and they ended up killing all the walkers in that store, because they were banging on the windows, making too much noise, and they knew that if the horde had come by, they would have been distracted and they would have gone off the beaten path. So I like at the very end, which was obviously very suspenseful, it looks like Rick's plan is coming true, and they're just at the end, and it's almost a success. And then all of a sudden you hear this loud horn, and it's just a horn. It's just like, meh, and it's not stopping. So you're just like, what is going on? And all the walkers start getting distracted. And what happens? They all start just coming off the path, and they all start heading into the forest. And it's like, oh my goodness. And there's a moment where Michonne is like, it sounds like that horn is coming from far away. And then Rick says it sounds like it's coming from home. So something is going on back at Alexandria, and somebody's honking a horn and they're not stopping it, which is now forcing the zombies off the road. And when you see that wide aerial shot of all these zombies, I mean, it's nuts. Even at the very beginning, when you saw the horde in that like little bunker, it just seemed crazy. And then when you saw Daryl riding up on his motorcycle and they were all sort of coming up the hill behind him, you're like, uh, what? So this kind of reminds me of, if you watched Fear the Walking Dead, that final scene or final episode when uh, those guys let all the walkers out of the stadium. So it's very reminiscent of that scene where you just saw this horde of walkers coming up onto this into this gated area, and it was just like a free for all. And that's exactly what this seems like. They were on this strategic path, and now they're all just gone astray, heading all towards Alexandria or in a direction that is not where they were trying to get them to go to. And it's just going to be a free for all. It's going to be nuts. I mean, there was thousands and thousands of them. I mean, it was so intense. So I cannot wait to see what is going to happen. It's going to be bananas. We did see that you know, Deanna is in charge of the group still, but is she really? I feel like she is, but Rick is really in charge of how everything's going to go down. But Deanna is still in charge. And I did also like what Glenn said to Maggie, which was, you need to stay back and keep her like sane, because everybody still needs to know that she's in charge, and that because they're afraid, right? So, Glenn is very observant, obviously, and he knows what's going on there. And I also loved that Morgan was extremely observant of Carol, because, Carol's still putting up the facade that she's just the home Susie maker. Like, she's just home making bread and cookies and muffins, and she doesn't know how to use a gun and all that kind of stuff. But Morgan was like, so were you a cop? Because you're very observant. You're watching everybody. You look like you're ready to go at the drop of a dime. So very interesting. And even the little banter that Morgan had with Michonne when he was like, so when I left earlier, did you take the the last um like granola bar or something? And she's like, it's always the last one with you, right? Like, you always think there's one more of something. So I thought it was a very interesting, like, random conversation for them to be having. So I'm not sure what's going to happen between those two this season. But I really could have used a little bit more Michonne in this episode. I'm always saying that, though. All right, guys, let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Pretty awesome out the gate. There's going to be a lot of drama next week for sure. These walkers are on the, just out and about now, and who knows how they're gonna do damage control on this. I just don't know how it's gonna happen. All right, guys, that's it for me. See you guys next week. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. See ya.